Okay, so this is exactly the most horrible lead. Thunderous is going to be hot garbage. I feel that perhaps I did not play this correctly. Bowerdad here, and welcome to Why Did I Lose, the video series where I honestly review my ranked game losses in order to find better lines of play, improve overall as a player, and hopefully inspire others to do the same. You'll notice here at the start of this game, I am immediately in the most dog water of all positions possible, so I decide that I'm going to actually switch out both of my Pokemon, and this is going to start a trend where we are going to see 7 Pokemon switch out in just the first 3 turns of this game. There's the second switch into my Landorus, and I've dropped the Zacian's attack twice now in hopes to regain a little bit of that lost momentum with the bum lead. Unfortunately, Sacred Sword still does a little bit over half to Incineroar because that Pokemon is fair, and going into the second turn, I decide that I'm going to initiate another switch back into Thunderous. My opponent thinks the same thing. They're going to refresh those attack drops, get out their Landorus for another Intimidate onto me, and at this point, it's just switches. Thunderous of the prankster variety is really weak to NDD, so you're going to see here that I'm basically just using it as a pivot. My Landorus does Earthquake, but since there are 2 flyers and 1 protector, it actually hits no targets. So immediately we have just this very non-productive first couple of turns here. I swap back into my Incineroar. This is where I discovered that their Landorus is White Herb, so they get to recover that lost attack. They do switch into their Kyogre, which gives me a great opening at the end of this phase of the game. The Rock Slide thankfully does not pick up any switches, so I'll get to Volt Switch off of their Kyogre for a significant amount of damage into Palkia. For the first time all game long, I'm in a really good position with Palkia at least. Incineroar is a sitting duck here, but I decide that it is ultimately better to sacrifice it than to switch in my Landorus or my Thunderous to take that extra damage from whatever my opponent's Pokemon are going to do. I'm going to Dynamax Palkia, and you're going to see a Max Geyser go into that Landorus slot, which ends up being really effective at wrapping it up. My Incineroar does Fake Out on the Psychic Terrain because I'm accidentally a clown. Incineroar is going to go down to that Origin Pulse. Now, it's really noteworthy that the Kyogre goes first. I should have picked up immediately that the Kyogre is Choice Scarf, but I didn't quite realize it at the time that I was playing the game, and you're going to see that come into play here in a minute. Geyser will take out the Landorus. It looks like I'm in an excellent position, but that Scarf Airstream combo is going to be my undoing. A moment ago, I said that I should have picked up on the fact that Kyogre was Choice Scarf. At this point in the game, I hadn't realized it yet. I'm debating over the merits of my moves, knowing that my opponent has +1 on speed for their Kyogre. I feel pretty confident that my Landorus will go first with its Choice Scarf U-turn, and will bounce off of this Indeedee. The turning point for me was the Origin Pulse still going first. I lose my Landorus absolutely for free, and by now it's basically too late for me to catch up. I get another Max Quake off, I get that special defense boost, but at this point, it really is just a huge problem. The Psychic Terrain goes away, so for the first time all game long, my Thunderous can actually conceivably do something. Now, that something is going to be a Thunder Wave that gets eaten by the Indeedee because they're going to follow me again. And that will basically be it. I'm going to end up picking Thunder Wave. I change my move at the last second because I really want to see if I can stop this Kyogre from running me over. But my opponent picks Follow Me, correctly so. So I will get that extra paralysis onto Indeedee, but it doesn't really matter because my Palkia is about to defeat it, but not before Kyogre gets yet another Origin Pulse KO onto one of my other Pokemon. Now that my Palkia has a bunch of special defense boosts, the Kyogre can't really hurt it, but the problem is the Kyogre destroyed all of Palkia's partners. So now it's Palkia against the world, and the Zacian comes back out. in order to close out this game. Kyogre can't really do much to Palkia. He has less than 20 damage, but it is enough for Zacian to wrap it up and wrap up the game. So, lesson learned? If they have Indeedee, I'm just not going to bring Thundy at all. There were two key things that happened during this game, which I'm going to explain, and then I'm going to talk about the exact turn where I should have done something different in order to close out the game more effectively. First and foremost, I'm going to put up my opponent's team that they had on Team Select, and the thing is, whenever I see a rain team or a heavily specially oriented team, I pick out Thundurus as my end-all be-all answer for everything. The problem with that is Indeedee female smokes Thundurus, makes it basically useless. You saw that during the game. Thundurus really wasn't able to accomplish anything that it wanted to. For that reason, bringing Thundurus was just a bad idea in the first place. The second thing that happened was my view of the Palkia-Kyogre matchup is such that, Kyogre doesn't really threaten Palkia at all, so I don't have to deal with it. I simply have to set up max Quake boosts, attack its opposing teammates, and everything will be fine. The problem is, the other three Pokemon that I brought to this game, none of them can withstand a rain-boosted Origin Pulse. So while I was happily attacking everything else that wasn't Kyogre, Kyogre was doing the same thing, attacking everything else that wasn't Palkia, and Palkia was having a little bit of the all my friends are dead syndrome. So when it got down to the end of it, it was Palkia versus Kyogre. Oh, and by the way, there was a Zacian there too. So I had no chance by the time it came to the end game. There was a very key turn. It was where both me and my opponent decided to use our respective Dynamaxes. Now, knowing that Kyogre is not a threat to Palkia, but is a huge threat to the rest of my team, I should have targeted the Kyogre with either a max Quake or a max Wormwind. In that case, Kyogre faints. I can swap out Incineroar in that same turn for Thundurus, who we established is not very useful in this matchup. I can sacrifice Thundurus, I can knock out the Kyogre, and then I have two intimidating Pokemon for their two physical threats, and that's what I should have done instead. Managing your Dynamax turns effectively is one of the most important things about playing competitive Pokemon on Sword and Shield, so it can feel really satisfying to get that Dynamax KO where the opponent gets off one, maybe sometimes zero Dynamax moves. However, as you saw in this game, that doesn't always lead to a victory. If you want to see a more humorous version of this similar thing happening to me, why don't you check out this episode? That's my time, and I'll see you next week.